Agent from the use and abuse of history by Nietzsche. Clear from the vague and shadowy. We must know the right time to forget as well as the right time to remember, and instinctively see when it is necessary to feel historically and when unhistorically. This is the point that the reader is asked to consider. That the unhistorical and historical are equally necessary to the health of an individual, a community, and a system of culture. Everyone has noticed that a man's historical knowledge and range of feeling may be limited, very limited. His horizon as narrow as that of an alpine valley. His judgments incorrect, and his experience falsely supposed original. And yet, in spite of all, the incorrectness and falsity, he may stand forth in unconquerable health and vigor to the joy of all who see him. Whereas another Badam with far more judgment and learning will fail in comparison, because the lines of his horizon are continually changing and shifting, and he cannot shake himself free from the delicate network of his truth and righteousness for a downright act of will or desire. We saw that the beast, absolutely unhistorical, with the narrowest of horizons, has yet a certain happiness, and lives, at least, without hypocrisy or ennui. And so, we may hold the capacity of feeling, to a certain extent, unhistorically, to be the more important and elemental as providing the foundation of every sound and real growth, like the surrounding atmosphere that can alone create life, in whose annihilation life itself disappears. It is true that man can only become a person by first suppressing this unhistorical element in his thoughts, comparisons, distinctions, and conclusions, letting clear sudden light break through these misty clouds by their power of turning the past to the uses of the present. But an excess of history makes them flag again. The black flag, liberation flag. But an excess of history makes him flag again, while without the veil of the unhistorical, he would never have the courage to begin. What deeds could man ever have done if he had not been enveloped in the dust cloud of the unhistorical? Or, to leave metaphors and take a concrete example, imagine a person swayed and driven by a strong passion, whether for a person or a theory. His world is quite altered. He is blind to everything behind him. New sounds are muffled and meaningless, although his perceptions were never so intimately felt in all their color, light, and music, and he seems to grasp them with his five senses together. All their judgments of value are changed for the worse. There is much they can no longer value, and as they can scarcely feel it, they wonder that they have so long been the sport of strange words and opinions. That his recollections have
run round in one unwearying cycle, an unwearying unwearying circle, and are yet too weak and weary to make a single step away from it.
Her whole case is most indefensible. It is narrow, ungrateful to the past, blind to danger, deaf to warnings, a small living eddy in a dead sea of night and forgetfulness. And yet, this condition, unhistorical and anti-historical throughout, is the cradle not only of unjust action,
but of every just and justifiable action in the world. No artist will paint her picture. No general will fuck himself. No nation gains its freedom without having striven and yearned for it under these very unhistorical conditions. If the man of action, if the action is a man, if the woman of action, in Goethe's ghost phrase, is without conscience, he, she, we is also without knowledge. He forgets. They forget
most things in order to do what? There is an unjust to what is behind
them, and only recognizes one law.
The laws suck.
The law of that which is to be. The law of the future. So, they loves their work infinitely more than it deserves to be loved. I love my work. I hate work, actually. I like creative stuff. I suppose that can be considered like intellectual work. So she loves her work infinitely more than it deserves to be loved, and the best works are produced in such an ecstasy of love that they must always be unworthy of it, however great their worth otherwise. Should anyone be able to dissolve the unhistorical atmosphere in which every great event happens and breathe afterwards, they might be capable of rising to the supra-historical standpoint of conscience that Nietzsche has described as the possible resort of historical research. History, he says, is useful for one purpose. If studied in detail, that men and women and every other non-binary wonderful person may know, as the greatest and best spirits of our generation do know, the accidental nature of the forms in which they see and insist on seeing others. Insist on others seeing. Insist, I say, because their consciousness of them is exceptionally intense. Exceptionally intense. Anyone who has not grasped this idea is in its different applications will fall under the spell of a more powerful spirit who reads a deeper emotion into the given form.